The table looked perfect that night. Warm lights, fresh food, soft music in the background. Everything felt normal, almost too normal. Nia sat quietly, tired from another long day, but she still forced a small smile as her family laughed around her. Her mother, Folake, was serving food like nothing in the world was wrong. Tammy was talking about some new designer bag she wanted, and her father, Adewale, seemed relaxed for once. For a moment, Nia almost forgot how exhausted she really was. Then suddenly, in the middle of the conversation, her father looked at her and asked casually, "Nia, is your monthly allowance enough?" The question didn't make sense. She blinked, thinking she heard him wrong. "My what?" He frowned slightly. "Your allowance. The money I send every month." Nia let out a small, confused laugh. "What allowance?" The words hung in the air. Everything stopped. Her mother's hand froze mid-air. Tammy went quiet. Even the sound of cutlery disappeared. Adewale's face slowly changed. The calm expression faded, replaced by something else. Something pale, something shocked. "You mean," he said slowly, his voice dropping, "you don't receive it?" Nia's heart started beating faster, confusion turning into something heavier. "Receive what?" she asked again, softer this time. And in that moment, without anyone saying it out loud, something in the room broke. "You never received it." Adewale's voice was no longer calm. It came out slower this time, heavier, like he was trying to understand something that didn't make sense. His eyes stayed locked on Nia, searching her face like maybe she was joking, like maybe she would suddenly laugh and say she forgot. But she didn't. Nia shook her head slightly, her confusion now turning into uneasiness. "No. I don't know what you're talking about." Before her father could say anything else, Folake quickly stepped in. Her voice came a little too fast, a little too controlled. "Oh, Adewale, you must be mixing things up," she said with a small laugh, waving her hand like it was nothing. "You know how busy things get. Maybe it wasn't every month, or maybe it stopped." But it didn't sound convincing. Not even close. Adewale turned his head slowly toward her. "Stopped," he repeated, his tone sharper now. "I've been sending that money regularly." The room felt tighter. He wasn't asking anymore. He was remembering. Nia's heart started pounding harder. Her mind began racing, trying to catch up with what was happening. Monthly allowance. Money being sent. How was that possible? Because she remembered every single night she came home exhausted. She remembered counting coins just to get through the week. She remembered skipping meals, telling herself she wasn't hungry. And now suddenly, there was money. For how long? Nia asked quietly, her voice almost shaking. Adewale looked back at her, his face now fully serious. "For years." Years. The word hit her harder than anything else. Nia felt something shift inside her chest. Confusion was still there, but now it was mixing with something else. Something darker. Something that didn't feel right. Across the table, Folake forced another smile, but this time it didn't reach her eyes. "Let's not make a big deal out of this," she said softly. "We're having dinner." But it was already too late, because in that moment, a small, quiet doubt had already planted itself deep inside Nia's heart, and it wasn't going anywhere. That night, Nia couldn't sleep. She just lay there staring at the ceiling, her father's words repeating again and again in her head. "For years." And slowly, like pieces of a puzzle she never knew existed, everything started coming back. All those nights, all that struggle, all that pain. It hit her at once. She remembered waking up before sunrise, dragging herself out of bed after barely sleeping 3 hours. One job in the morning, another in the afternoon, and sometimes a third shift at night. There were days she didn't even remember what proper rest felt like. She remembered standing on her feet for hours, her body aching, her head spinning, but still pushing through because she had no choice. There was one night she would never forget. She had just finished a long shift, completely exhausted. Her vision blurred as she tried to walk home. The next thing she knew, everything went black. She woke up on the ground, people standing around her, someone asking, "Are you okay?" But she wasn't. She had smiled weakly and said, "I'm fine," because she didn't even have the luxury to break down. And the whole time, there was money. Her chest tightened. She remembered calling home once, her voice tired, asking if things could be a little easier for her. But her mother had said calmly, "Nia, you're strong. You've always been independent." Independent. That word echoed in her mind now. Not supported, not helped, just independent. Meanwhile, she remembered seeing Tammy's pictures online. Expensive dinners. Trip. Smiling in places Nia couldn't even imagine visiting. Everyone in the comments praising her lifestyle. And Nia. She was barely surviving. Tears slowly filled her eyes as she turned to the side. All this time she thought she was just unlucky, just struggling like everyone else. But now it felt different. Now it felt like she wasn't just struggling. She had been left to struggle. The next day, Nia found herself scrolling through her phone, her mind still heavy from everything she had learned. Almost without thinking, she opened Tammy's social media. And there it was. Completely different world. Tammy was standing in front of a luxury hotel, smiling like life had never been hard a single day. Another post. She was in Paris, holding shopping bags from expensive designer stores. Bright lights, beautiful streets, perfect outfits. Everything looked effortless. Nia stared at the screen, her fingers slowly tightening around her phone. She kept scrolling. Fancy dinners. Private events. New clothes almost every week. Caption after caption about living my best life, and hard work pays off. Hard work. That word hit differently now. Because Nia knew what hard work looked like. It wasn't soft lighting and perfect pictures. It was tired eyes, aching feet, and coming home too exhausted to even eat. She looked down at herself for a moment. Simple clothes, worn-out shoes, hands that had worked too many hours. Then she looked back at the screen. Tammy laughing, Tammy glowing, Tammy living a life Nia had never even dared to dream about. And suddenly, the gap between them didn't feel normal anymore. Felt wrong. Nia remembered family gatherings where everyone praised Tammy. She's doing so well. She has style. She knows how to enjoy life. And when it came to Nia, she's independent. That same word again. No one asked how she was surviving. No one looked close enough to see how tired she really was. Nia swallowed hard, her chest feeling tight. Because now, for the first time, she wasn't just seeing the difference between their lives. She was starting to understand it. The next morning the house felt different. Quiet but not peaceful. Adewale didn't say much at breakfast. He barely touched his food. His mind was somewhere else. Stuck on one question that refused to leave him alone. If Nia didn't receive the money, then where did it go? Later that day he sat alone in his study, the door closed. He opened his laptop slowly, his hands not as steady as usual. For years, he had trusted everything was being handled properly. He never thought he needed to check. But now he had to. He logged into his bank account and pulled up his transaction history. There it was. Every single month. Same amount. Same date. $2,000. Sent without fail. At first, a small part of him felt relieved. Maybe this is just a misunderstanding, he thought. Maybe she forgot. Maybe there's an explanation. But something didn't sit right. So he clicked into the details. And that's when everything started to fall apart. The transfers were real, consistent, clear. But the name on the receiving account wasn't Nia. Adewale leaned closer to the screen, blinking like maybe his eyes were playing tricks on him. He checked again, then again. Same result. The money he had been sending for years was going somewhere else. His chest tightened. No! He whispered under his breath. He quickly went through more records, scrolling faster now. His calm completely gone. Month after month, the same pattern repeated. Thousands. Adding up to something much bigger than he had imagined. And not once, not even once, had it reached Nia. A cold feeling settled in his stomach. Because this wasn't a mistake. This was intentional. Someone had redirected that money. Someone close. Someone who had access. Adewale slowly leaned back in his chair, his face going pale as the truth began to form in his mind. And for the first time, he wasn't just confused anymore. He was starting to feel angry. That evening, the truth didn't come out slowly. Came out all at once. Adewale walked into the living room, his phone still in his hand, his face serious in a way Nia had never seen before. "Folake," he called, his voice low but firm. "We need to talk. Now." Something in his tone made the air feel heavy. Folake walked in, trying to stay calm, but there was a slight tension in her face. "What is it?" she asked, forcing a normal tone. Adewale didn't sit down. He just held up his phone. "I checked the transfers." Silence. For a second no one moved. Then he said it clearly, each word hitting harder than the last. "The money I've been sending every month, it's not going to Nia." Nia felt her heart drop. Folake's eyes flickered just for a moment, but that was enough. "Tammy," Adewale continued, his voice tightening, "why is the account in Tammy's name?" The room froze. Tammy, who had been sitting quietly, suddenly looked up, her expression shifting from confusion to panic. I don't." But she didn't finish. Because everyone already understood. Nia slowly turned her head toward her mother, her eyes searching her face, hoping, praying. This wasn't what it looked like. But Folake didn't deny it. Not immediately. Instead, she let out a small breath and said quietly, "It's not what you think." But it was exactly what they thought. Adewale's voice rose, anger breaking through. "Then explain it." Folake finally spoke, her tone defensive now. "Tammy needed it more," she said. "She had a certain lifestyle to maintain. Opportunities. Image. You know how things are." Nia felt like the ground had disappeared under her feet. "Tammy needed it," she repeated softly, her voice barely there. "All those years. All those nights she worked until her body gave up. All the time she struggled just to survive. And the money meant for her was being used for designer bags, trips, and luxury." Tears filled her eyes, but they didn't fall. Because this pain was deeper than tears. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about choice. Her mother had looked at both her daughters and chosen one over the other, again and again, every single month. And Nia realized something in that moment that hurt more than anything else. She had never even been considered. That night no one went to their rooms. The living room lights stayed on, but the warmth was gone. The same place that once felt like home now felt tense, almost unfamiliar. Adewale was pacing back and forth, his anger no longer hidden. "For years, Folake. Years," he said, his voice shaking. "I trusted you. I believed you were taking care of both our daughters." Folake stood across from him, her arms crossed like she was trying to protect herself. "And I did," she replied quickly. "I did what I thought was best." "Best?" Adewale stopped and looked at her in disbelief. "You took money meant for Nia and gave it to Tammy. How is that best?" Folake's expression hardened. "Because Tammy needed it more," she said, her tone firm now. "She had expectations. A certain life to keep up with. You don't understand the pressure she was under." Adewale let out a bitter laugh. "Pressure? And what about Nia?" He pointed toward her. "Do you even know what she's been going through?" Folake didn't answer. Because she didn't know. Or maybe, she never tried to. Nia sat quietly on the couch, her hands resting in her lap, her body still. But inside, everything felt loud. Every word, every excuse, every justification was hitting her harder than she expected. "She's strong," Folake added, softer this time, like she was trying to defend herself. "Nia has always been independent. She didn't need as much." Nia's lips pressed together. There it was again. Independent. Not cared for. Not protected. Just left alone to figure things out. Across the room, Tammy sat silently, her usual confidence gone. For once, she didn't have anything to say. Adewale shook his head slowly, disappointment now mixing with anger. "You didn't help one daughter," he said quietly. "You neglected the other." The words hung heavy in the air. Nia finally looked up. Her eyes were filled with something deeper than just pain now. There was hurt, yes, but there was also clarity. A quiet understanding settling inside her. She wasn't confused anymore. She wasn't questioning anything anymore. She was seeing everything exactly as it was. And somehow, that hurt even more. For a long moment no one spoke. The room was filled with tension, but also something heavier, truth that no one could escape anymore. Nia sat there quietly, her eyes moving from her father to her mother, and then to Tammy. Her chest rose slowly as she took a deep breath, and then finally she spoke. I was working until I couldn't stand. Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry, but it cut through the room sharper than anything else. I was waking up before sunrise, coming home after midnight, barely sleeping, barely eating, she continued, her words steady but heavy. There were days I couldn't even feel my legs anymore. No one interrupted her. No one could. Nia looked directly at her mother now. I collapsed once, she said softly. On the street, just fell. And when I woke up, I still had to go back to work the next day. Folake's face changed, but she didn't speak. 'Cause what could she say? Nia's eyes slowly shifted to Tammy. And all this time, she continued, her voice tightening just a little, you were funding her life. The words landed hard. Tammy's lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. For the first time, she looked completely lost, like she didn't know where to look or what to say. The truth was no longer hidden behind excuses or explanations. It was right there, clear, unavoidable. Nia swallowed, her throat tight now. I thought I was just struggling, she said quietly. I thought maybe this is just how life is. Her voice softened even more. But it wasn't, was it? Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence filled the room. Adewale looked away, guilt and anger written all over his face. Folake stood still, her earlier confidence completely gone. And Tammy. She couldn't even look at Nia anymore. Because in that moment, reality hit all of them at once. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It wasn't just about money. It was about everything that had been taken from Nia, without her even knowing. And now, for the first time, no one could pretend otherwise. After that moment, everything changed, but not in the way anyone expected. The same people who once ignored Nia were now looking at her differently, carefully, almost cautiously, like they were afraid of what she might say next. Folake was the first to break. Her voice was softer now, no longer defensive. Nia, I didn't realize, she started, but her words faded. Because deep down, she knew that wasn't true. She had known. She had just chosen not to think about it. I was trying to do what was best, she added weakly. But even she didn't sound convinced anymore. Nia didn't respond. She just sat there, quiet, distant. Adewale stepped forward, his expression filled with regret. This is my fault too, he said. I should have checked. I should have made sure you were okay. He paused, then continued more firmly. I'm going to fix this. Every amount you didn't receive, I'll transfer it to you. All of it. And more, if needed. Sounded like a solution, like something that should make things better. But it didn't. Nia slowly looked up at him, her face calm. Too calm. You can't fix this with money, she said quietly. Her words were gentle, but they carried weight. Because it wasn't about numbers anymore. It was about years. Years of struggling alone. Years of being overlooked. Years of believing she had no one to rely on. Folake's eyes filled with tears now. Please say something, she whispered. Don't shut us out like this. But Nia already had. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly. The connection that once existed between them felt distant now. Almost gone. Even Tammy, who used to walk around with confidence, now sat silently, her head lowered, the reality finally settling in. For the first time, the roles had shifted. Nia wasn't the one seeking approval anymore. She wasn't the one trying to be seen. Now they were the ones trying to reach her. And she was the one who had stepped away. 'Cause once trust breaks like that, doesn't come back the same. The room was quiet again, but this time it felt final. Nia slowly stood up, her movements calm, her face steady. There were no more tears, no more confusion, just clarity. She looked at her father first, then at her mother. You didn't just take money, she said softly, her voice controlled but heavy with meaning. You took years of my life. No one moved. No one tried to interrupt her. Years I can't get back, she continued. Years I spent struggling, thinking I had no one. Thinking I had to survive on my own. Folake covered her mouth, tears falling now. But Nia didn't look away. Adewale stepped forward again, almost desperate. "Let me fix it," he said. "Please, let me at least give you what was yours." Nia shook her head gently. "I don't want it," she replied. The words landed harder than anything else she had said. 'Cause this time she meant it. "I've already lived without it," she added. "I've already built myself without it." There was a quiet strength in her voice now. Not anger, not pain, just truth. Without another word, she picked up her bag and walked toward the door. No one stopped her, because deep down, they knew they had already lost her. Months later, Nia sat in a quiet office, sunlight coming through the large window beside her. The space was simple, but it was hers. Every part of it. Her laptop was open in front of her, work neatly organized, everything under control. No chaos, no struggle, no waiting for anyone. She slowly closed the laptop and leaned back, taking a deep breath. Real peace. A small, quiet smile touched her face as she looked out at the city. And in that moment, one thought stayed with her, clear and unshaken. While they were choosing who deserved more, I was becoming someone who needed nothing from them.